WisconsinEye's Campaign 2024 programming is sponsored by Wisconsin Counties Association, Nicolet National Bank, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Operating Engineers Local 139, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, the Wisconsin Laborers District Council, and North Central State's Regional Council of Carpenters. To support programs like this, please consider a tax-deductible donation at wiseye.org/donate or by texting WisEye to 44321.
Margaret Arney of Wauwatosa is the Democratic candidate for the 18th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Margaret Arney, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for participating in these candidate interviews. I'll start by asking you, what is your campaign's key message? Why are you running for this office?
I'm running for this office because I believe in the continuity with a wonderful legislator who came before, Evan Goyke, connection across the whole district from Wauwatosa to just west of downtown through Sherman Park, and compassion. I really feel like it's the role of government to use our common resources for the common good, and that there are a lot of people in the neighborhoods especially that need to know that they have somebody who's looking out from their perspective and for them, and at the state level.
So if you're elected, what's an example of a bill that would be a priority for you to introduce?
Well, my priority right now is aligned very much with the Wisconsin Democrats, preserving and putting into the Constitution, if we can, the right for people to choose to make their health care choices, for bodily autonomy, that's abortion rights, to get rid of that old 1849 law, so we never have to be haunted by that again. Expansion of Badger Care for health care, and fully funding our schools. Our schools have been starved for many, many years, and it's in our Constitution that we should have adequately funded public education, and we need to do that. So there's more, but that's like the top three.
We'll get to more. Mm-hmm. If you're elected to the Assembly, you're entering during a biennial budget year,
yes,
and the state has a projected more than $3 billion surplus.
On top of the
top
previous
two priorities.
budget.
What would yours be for use of surplus funding?
Fully funding education, especially for our most vulnerable families and children, special education, and making sure that our schools are ADA compliant, that our schools have the mental health resources that they need, and that our schools are really able to pay their teachers as professionals. And I'll say one of the things that is, as a current Assembly person, even though the Wauwatosa School District is separate from my responsibility, the fact that our school district has to go to our community to fund operating costs, first of all, isn't unique to us, but I don't think it's fair. I think the state has not taken responsibility the way it needs to address, the needs that we have. And our schools and communities need the money that we've already paid for the public good.
What about tax cuts and tax reform? Is that part of your platform in any way?
I'd have to look more specifically at which tax cuts. Like, there was a tax cut that I thought made sense on personal property. So small business owners, for example, had to pay tax on the stuff that they had to run their business inside their rental property. And that was a good tax cut. That didn't make a lot of sense. And the state actually did that in a really responsible way. But usually when we talk about tax cuts, it's this big general, kind of a thing. Those are expensive. We can't hold down the cost of what it takes to fix a road, or even the cost of what it takes to adequately pay a teacher or a nurse. We need to be realistic about what it takes to pay for the services that we need.
You talked about your priorities in K-12 education. I'm wondering about what you're thinking about the future for higher education.
Both. I'd say both.
Well, so what does the future look like for the 4-year colleges, 2-year colleges, and technical colleges in Wisconsin? What's the university's responsibility, or the legislature's
Well, first of all, I want to say that starving our schools includes both K-12 and the university system. How Wisconsin, that was such an innovator in higher education with the extension schools, education in agriculture, the Wisconsin ideal, really lifting up people from wherever you were to use education to really serve our community. How we went from that to thinking it was a good idea to basically penalize the UW system, I don't understand. And I think in terms of getting people into jobs that support families, into jobs with a future, into jobs where we're not trying to fill skill gaps from people from all around the country or from out of internationally, is we need to nurture and build the talent that we have here. And the UW system and the technical schools need that kind of help. So,
a couple more workforce questions. Investments in public and energy infrastructure grow our state's economy. This also provides an opportunity to invest in our state's workforce, but currently there are no requirements for hiring local workers. Would you support a state resident hiring requirement for state, local, and utility scale infrastructure investments?
I want to break that up a little bit. First of all, we need to look at those energy infrastructure because we have climate change. And I think that our direction with our energy infrastructure, we really need to look at not contributing to carbon in the atmosphere when we're thinking about what that energy infrastructure looks like. So, first of all. Second of all, I would say that there's been a lot of shade cast on green jobs. Why? We have, all across, electricians, construction, even, opportunities for people to learn the engineering, all of that. We need to really dig in and invest in the whole train of workforce, not just one kind of worker, but the workers all through. And yes, of course, we need to hire local people. One of the best things ever is in Wauwatosa, we work with Prism Consulting to target hiring in certain zip codes in Milwaukee to get people from 53206 particularly. And it's not explicitly race oriented, but it is looking at where do we need employment and hiring people out of those places. And there are firms like Prism that specialize in that and excel in that. We've had some huge wins in terms of that. Why not let that be what we do?
You support that as a requirement?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Employee classification is an issue in the construction industry. Mm-hmm. Some employers misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay them in cash off the books. This lowers costs by avoiding payroll taxes and unemployment insurance and puts compliant companies at a disadvantage when bidding on projects. Plus, those misclassified workers may be denied minimum wage protections or overtime pay. Right. Are you aware of the issue and what should be done about it?
I'm aware of the issue, and to me it's a law enforcement issue. And, if a company is known for those kind of practices, they should not be able to have contracts through our government agencies. It's like, it's crime. It's wage theft. It's crime. So no, I don't support that.
Moving on to housing. Affordable rental housing is an issue in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Some support government-imposed rent control to maintain affordability, while others argue keeping rent artificially low will decrease rental supply, resulting in increased prices. What is your sense of housing as an issue, and which best addresses rental housing affordability? Is it rent control, building more rentals, or some other solution?
Well, like I said, I just came from a meeting. We're talking about this in Wauwatosa, and I think there's a kind of housing that we're completely ignoring in the conversation, and that is existing housing stock. And there's a lot of individual people, there's a lot of small-scale real estate owners that may own a duplex or two or four. I think we need to work with those people because those rents a lot of times are within the affordable ranges. They're actually comparable to the reimbursement rates for Section 8. And we need to invest there so there's a follow-on effect so that you don't have to be the big developer. And that's a piece of it. So we need to do things at all different levels, much like climate change, much like any of these other things. We need to look at, we need to change the conversation and look where we don't usually look.
Does that mean incentives from the state, or what's the state's role in that?
That means sending money to the municipalities and to the local level, saying, use this money to support your housing stock. Use this money creatively with your nonprofits and with your realtors and with your developers, and see what you can be doing, because we have this high stakes, all or nothing kind of attitude towards housing. Either it's a big development or nothing, and we need to get much more creative with that, and the state can help that happen.
Healthcare.
Yes.
Medical systems are facing numerous headwinds in the form of inflation, workforce development, and issues around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, resulting in fewer services and even the closure of a hospital system in western Wisconsin. What would you do to preserve access to care and prevent future closures?
I think we need to really reassess what it means to be nonprofit and reward those entities and healthcare organizations that embrace that mission and live that mission. We have a lot of really good ones. But for ones that are saying they both want to have that nonprofit status and they want to make these moves that are not good for our communities, we got to put that on the table. I mean, that nonprofit status is actually a subsidy. It's a huge subsidy. So like they're trying to do on the federal level, we need to say, okay, we're your customers, and this is what we're going to need from you.
Do you support increasing the Medicaid reimbursement rate to hospitals?
Yes, I do.
Mental health care, also a growing concern for Wisconsinites and concern for state and county budgets. In your district, what are you hearing on mental health care, and how would you propose addressing it?
Mental health care is huge, and it's only getting bigger. And as we raise our next generation, the healthcare challenges that we're having are unprecedented. So I think we need to really, again, it goes back to our educational system as well. We need to be training people to go into mental health professions early on. We need to support those professionals. We need to deploy them in smart ways. We should really look at how our systems don't just say, oh, well, go to a therapist and the therapist will fix it, but how can we create systems, our schools, and even our libraries, things like that, to support mental health, not just for kids, but for everybody. And it's amazing what can be done when the right people are in the right places.
You mentioned this at the top of the interview, and I want to ask you more directly. How should Wisconsin move forward on the issue of abortion?
Wisconsin needs to establish and defend the right of people to their bodily autonomy and to make their own healthcare decisions. And it's not just abortion. Abortion is number one. Abortion has really kicked this to the forefront. But the way medical technology is moving, we need to locate the power of decision in the citizen, not in the legislature, or else we're going to be, doctors will be having to call their lawyers before they treat people.
Should there be any limits on abortion in terms of a number of weeks?
Let me put it to you this way. That decision should be in the hands of the person making the decision, their family and friends, and their healthcare providers and the science. That's where the location of the decision needs to be. Not with me. I have an identical twin who's a doctor, and she might be able to answer that question, but I'm not that twin. So that's not my job.
Don't get confused.
Right. And I also want to say it's my job to represent people. Represent people. I'm not their doctor, and I want to keep it that way.
What are the pressing transportation needs in your district, and how important is it that these needs are addressed, and for the state to keep on schedule with the reconstruction of our aging interstates and significant corridors of commerce?
Oh my gosh, my district gets to be the glad recipient of I-94 coming through. It's finally going to hit into the city. We did the zoo interchange, and the next part is coming. And then also 175, it was sort of demoted from 41 to 175, and that channel comes through. So, but my perspective is from the street level. So people want to know, how do I get to work? What's going to happen on my block? And unfortunately, those are not the questions that we have the answers to until way farther down the process. So we definitely need to keep up with these investments. These projects take a very, very long time. And
So keep
I
on
don't
schedule
know.
with the interstate
Oh
work.
my gosh. We schedule, I remember hearing about this when I was a kid in the 90s. It's 30 years later, and we're finally getting to a point of having plans that might turn into something. So yes, if I can't imagine another answer to that question that would make any sense at all.
PFAS and other water contaminants are a concern for a growing number of Wisconsinites. Do you see this as an important issue, and how would you propose to address it?
Yes, I do. The water quality is important to everyone. We need water to live. Water is essential. And not only PFAS, but lead, but radon, but all of these other things. And we need to have a comprehensive water policy and water levels of purity, I guess, that we as the state are dedicated to, and for all of our communities. So, yes.
We're down to our final two questions.
Okay.
How would you describe the leading differences between you and your opponent?
I think the main difference between me and my opponent is, first of all, I'm a current elected official. I've spent my professional life in social service. I'm very well connected all through the district. I have a lot of endorsements that I'm very proud of, and I really haven't seen that with the other person running. I think he's at the very beginning of thinking about this and thinking about what public service might mean. I think I'm essentially better prepared and better connected in order to deliver on what this job can be. I think I'll be able to deliver a stronger set of results.
We're down to the magic wand question.
Okay.
If you're elected this fall and you get a magic wand, you can use in the state capitol to resolve one issue in a way that brings all parties and people together. What's the issue?
I'm going to take on incarceration. I was told point blank, let it go, because people they're more interested in reintegration programs than in what happens in the justice system and what happens in incarceration. But I really see that the path that we have been on in Wisconsin is a bad path. There are other states, Minnesota and New York State, that have looked more deeply and made better decisions, because a system where we're essentially throwing away the lives of many, many people does not have compassion for their children, for their parents, for the people that need them in their community. And people are so much more than the terrible things that they have done. I'm not saying that people don't deserve consequences, they do, but we are so out of whack with the consequences to not only the people, but to their families, to their communities, and to all of us. I want us to do much, much better.
Well, thank you, Margaret Arney of Wauwatosa, the Democratic candidate for the 18th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Margaret Arney, thank you for talking with WisconsinEye.
Thank you for the opportunity.
This programming is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for watching.